Where's Gabe?
To order. It is 7:30 p.m. Will everyone join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If we can administer the oath of office to Mr. James Wallin, Sue Hilgart, and Kelly Beth, come out in front of the council again.
Okay.
That's
the first test. You have to jump over.
First test, Sue failed to sign all of these. Go to your permission period.
Sue?
He's got too much on his plate.
Good evening and congratulations on your recent election. You all raise your right hand and repeat after me. I've given you a copy of what you have to follow along, so I won't go too far ahead of you. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States.
Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
The Constitution of the State of Minnesota.
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
And that I will fairly and impartially discharge the duties of the office of
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the office of Mayor,
representing the city of Brainerd, to which I have been elected to the best of my knowledge and ability. So help me God.
representing the city of Brainerd, to which I have been elected to the best of my knowledge and ability. So help me God.
Thank you. Welcome to the city of Brainerd.
I hope 10 times is charm.
10 times, huh?
10 times.
You should have memorized that.
I know.
I'm turning mine in for an autograph.
It's
We
too
will
far
get that.
apart.
Sue, you want to have yours autographed?
We will do a roll call then. Mayor Wallin,
Here.
Pritchett,
Here.
Bevins,
Here.
Sheeler,
Here.
Johnson, absent, Borknagen,
Here.
Hilgert,
Here.
Cope.
Here.
With that then, Mayor, we have the Mayor Wallin prayer for the year.
Thank you. And I appreciate the council and all those involved in being here this evening to allow me to have a prayer. A lot of people say we should have separation of church and state. And I said I would not ever want to be in a state where we couldn't publicly pray and ask God for help. For those that don't know it, I believe the Congress still opens their sessions with prayer, and they pay their clergy to do that. So we do live in a nation, one nation under God, as we just mentioned. So with that, if we could have a moment of prayer. Our Heavenly Father, we give you thanks for all the many blessings that you have provided for this great city of ours. As our Creator and Redeemer, we thank you for the beauty and amenities that you daily provide for us in this wonderful area and world that we live in. As we start out another new year, as a policymaker and governing body for the city of Brainerd, I would ask that you would give each of us the guidance and direction needed to provide the best possible service to the citizens that we represent. Help us in the decisions that we make, that they will not only be for the betterment of our city now, but for future generations to come. We pray especially for our service personnel that are serving this great country of ours. Watch over and protect them and their families, not only as they serve, but also when they return home and readjusting to civilian life. This I ask in Jesus' name, I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Next item on the council agenda is the appointment of council president. I will see. Are there any nominations for council president?
I'll nominate myself.
I would check it out.
Gary Sheeler nominates Gary Sheeler, and is seconded by Councilman Borkhagen. Do we have any other nominations?
I nominate Dave Pritchett.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a second. Do we have any other nominations? Do we have any other nominations for a second time? For third and final time, do we have any other nominations? Nominations are closed. We have 2 nominations for council president. One is Gary Sheeler, the other is Dave Pritchett. Prior to the meeting, we included voting procedures for a single ballot election. Is council acceptable with that voting process?
Yeah.
It's similar to what you did use when we replaced Bonnie Cumberland. Thing there is I didn't make any ballot sheets. My apologies. You want to rip sheets of paper?
Sure. Oh, Gary, you got a yellow block? That'd probably work out best.
Mr. Administrator,
Yes, ma'am.
would you please remind everyone that the vote must be signed?
The vote must be signed and will be read aloud
Right, it
and
must-
kept maintained for public record.
It must be signed. Well, you need one? Well, why?
Maybe the only vote.
All right, if you would like to make your votes now, the 2 candidates are Gary Sheeler and Dave Pritchett. All right, the votes are in. We have one for Gary Sheeler, signed by Mary Cope. One for Gary Sheeler by Chip Markenhagen. One for Gary Sheeler by Sue Hilgard. One for Dave Pritchett by Dave Pritchett. One for Pritchett by Kelly Bevins. And one for Gary Sheeler by Gary Sheeler.
Yes.
So that's 4 for Gary Sheeler. Gary Sheeler is the council president.
Thank you. Give a new spot.
Yep.
And I appreciate this tremendously. After 10 years, do my best.
That's right.
May I ask one quick question? Why the process of voting on paper versus,
Could be either way.
If I recall,
There's no
I don't remember exactly why we did it that way.
Okay, all
I
right.
think
I
it was
thought
a
maybe it
issue
was-
of when somebody might raise their hand or not thing, and so having it all on paper, that way it's documentable
Okay.
in the future too.
okay,
You don't have to worry about a half hand.
Okay.
situation.
thank you.
The only thing, okay, yeah, you want to finish the vice president?
Yes. The next will be voting for the vice president.
I'll nominate Dave Pritchett.
And I second that.
Any other nominations? With that, we'll just go with one nomination. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Dave.
Congratulations, Dave.
The only other thing, sir, I see that we don't have an approval of the agenda on there, that, because of all the presidents, I think that,
Yep.
so we should add that.
Okay. So for item 6A, no.
That's fine, yeah.
Okay. Item 6A will be the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 7, appointment of council committees, council president. I did think about it, and I'm going to make the decisions tonight, so everybody has his position. Basically, in Safety and Public Works, Chip has done a great job. He's in a great spot, and I'm just going to leave him right there. I think he would do wonderful. On Safety and Public Works, for a new person, I would like to add Sue. I think she would do a great job from her past experience in Safety and Public Works. And I would pick Mr. Bevins for the chair as far as Safety and Public Works, if you don't mind the position. And then on Personal and Finance, it'll be Dave staying where he is at, so we got that. And then it'll be Mr. Johnson Personal Finance, and Mary Cope will be the chair of the Personnel and Finance. With that, everybody can move in their positions, and we all know where they are,
We have to move tonight,
if you want to.
I suppose.
You're,
I don't know.
Sue, you're going to Safety and Public Works, so you would go over to that side, I'm sorry. Kelly will go next to the mayor, Mary next to me, and Gabe will take Sue's spot then.
So I can take my cough drops.
there we go.
Gonna miss you. Gonna miss you.
I'm only 2 blocks away.
No, Mary's moving.
Gonna miss it.
Hi, Kelly.
Oh, hey, how's life on this side?
Well, that's right. I'll find it.
It's a nicer chair. It's on the floor.
Raise, but I guess this will be all right. Got
We
a
have
better
great
view here.
experience on both sides.
You crank.
I don't know.
You crank that.
We already experimented.
With that, we'll go to item number 8, the consent calendar. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion, there was a second. Is this roll call?
Yes. Sorry, no, it's not. It's consent agenda, I'm sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So your license is approved then, no questions?
But you're welcome to stay.
Yes.
There'll be fireworks afterwards.
Yeah, right.
Item number 9, approval of bills, 2014 year end and January 15, 2015, and transfer of funds per budget. I'm going to look at Mary, she's the chief of, oops,
We usually do the consent calendar by roll call.
We did,
That's what I
I'm sorry,
thought.
I didn't have that on my list, sorry.
thank you for that. I did bring it up, but
Finance
Yep.
director actually pointed it out.
Thank you. That's right, I'm used to Kelly saying it, so I'm. Pritchett,
Yes.
Bevins,
Yes.
Sheeler,
yes.
Borkenhagen,
Yes.
Hilger,
Yes.
Coe.
Yes.
Item number 9,
I was fiddling with that.
the approval of bills. I can might as well just give it right to Mary and see if she's good right out of the
Well,
shower.
I guess I'll just make the motion, although I really don't know. It's okay, but I will move to approve the bills and the transfer of funds per budget.
We have a motion.
Second.
This will be roll call.
Yes, sir. Pritchett,
Yes.
Bevins,
Yes.
Sheeler,
Yes.
Borkenhagen,
Yes.
Hilger,
Yes.
Coe.
Yes.
Item number 10 will be payment to contractors, the approval of. The first one is to SEH for $25.89, and that's for on the historic water tower. And then the next bullet point is Minnesota Department of Transportation on Laurel Street Bridge, and that must be for the inspection.
No, this is for the replacement of the expansion gland.
Move approval.
We have a motion,
Second.
and this is roll call.
Pritchett,
Yes.
Bevins,
Yes.
Sheeler,
Yes.
Borkenhagen,
Yes.
Hilger,
Yes.
Coe.
Item number 11, unfinished business. Item A, public hearing, final reading of proposed ordinance number 1425, rezoning 705 South 6th Street. We will open up the public hearing at 7:42. Anybody here for the public hearing? Anybody here for the public hearing? Anybody here for the public hearing? We'll close the public hearing at 7:42 and a half.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
move to hold the final reading of proposed ordinance number 1425.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. We're looking for, this would be, not a roll, this,
Just a vote.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Same sign?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
move to adopt ordinance number proposed, ordinance number 1425.
We have a motion
Second.
and this will be roll call.
This will be Pritchett,
Yes.
Bevins,
Yes.
Sheeler,
Yes.
Borkenhagen,
Yes.
Hilger,
Yes.
Coe.
Yes.
Item 11B will be another public hearing and final reading of proposed ordinance number 1426. And we'll open up the public hearing at 7:43. Anybody up here for, state your name and your address? and thank you for coming.
Sam Anderson, 2424 Business 371 in Brainerd. I probably don't need to say anything, but I just felt, in light of events that occurred in the city last night, I wanted to say thank you to our law enforcement, but I know all of the individuals involved, and my heart breaks, and to me it says just how much more important it is that we get help to people that are struggling with addiction. And so, and I have a great report to share with you. Last week I received a call from a donor who has pledged $1 million towards the expansion project. And so we're really excited about what's going to be coming. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you,
Good
Sam.
news.
Anybody else for public hearing? With that, we'll close the public hearing at 7:45. We're looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Mr. Bivens.
a move to hold the final reading of proposed ordinance number 1426.
We have a motion.
Second?
With that, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nothing?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
move to adopt ordinance number 1426.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Roll call.
Bridget?
Yes.
Bevins?
Yes.
Sheeler?
Yes.
Morganhagen?
Yes.
Hilgert?
Yes.
Coe.
Yes.
Item 11C, replacing rental/building inspector position. I have Patrick as far as you want to update us on that?
Council recalls, I think it was May or so, when one of the building inspectors indicated that he was going to be leaving our employment in March of 2015. Council agreed to look at that, review that process. We informed council that we would need to start the discussion in January. Felt that the new council was appropriate. The council has approved a budget that does include 3 positions in the building inspection department. Included in your package, we've given you more information than we typically provide when we go to refill a position, but primarily we're doing that because of the comments we received from council during the budget process. I also want to point out the one sheet that is 11 by 17 in your packet tonight. It's another good piece of information. It's identified as attachment A. Today, when we were going through the packet online, we noticed that did not get included. It will get included in the official long-term packet. We apologize to the public who didn't get to see that ahead of time, but it wasn't until 4:30 when we noticed that discrepancy. We apologize. But with that, we wanted to take the time to show the city council, if you just walk through the different attachments. One, the year-to-date revenues and expenditures from 2005 to so far this year, or at the time of 2014. That would be the first page after the cover memo. Oh, back up.
First page before.
Yes, right there.
Thank you.
So what that's looking at is the amount of revenues we've had and the expenditures we've had. We've had some, what do we say, high revenue years going back to pre-recession in the almost $500,000, and then we had some very low years where we brought in $239,000, $212, but you can see that we've started to see an increase in permits being issued. Also, we projected an additional increase based upon our conversations with the different contractors that we work with on a regular basis as far as what they see for different projects out there. Additionally, included in your packet on the 3rd page of this item, Tim Kahi provided the details in far greater information than we've ever done before when we looked at different positions. But, we looked at the annual permit comparison reports, inspection reports, permit fees reports, housing summary reports, also rental housing license summary. In addition, we did talk a little bit about the staff time, and we can have Tim go into those details. On the 2nd page, or page 4 of his report, he goes into the different responsibilities. Quick summary, there are 3 building officials, or building inspectors. Tim is the building official as appointed by the city council. And then we have 2 others that work under him that do specific inspections, plan review fees, and conduct all the rental inspections. Additionally, we have 1 staff person, Lori Johnson, I believe, who's been here for quite some time. Long-standing employee with the city for more than 25 years even. So she's knowledgeable of how the process works and gained a rapport with the different building contractors as they come in to get building permits. Additionally, Tim identified some of the training requirements that are required for maintaining their license and then provided a quick summary. After that information, we did also include a copy of the job description. This is the job description as provided when the council went through their process last year. There's been some minor modifications. When I say process, I'm sorry. Last year, for everybody's knowledge, the city council went through a pay equity study and did a thorough report of all the positions, looked at all the job descriptions, worked with staff. It's a very long, arduous process going through making sure the job description is current. It's one of those things you do every 10 years type updates to keep job descriptions and the points up to date. And as you can see in the very last page of that job description, it identifies the last revised was December 31st, 2014. Talks about the different physical requirements, the job knowledge, education, experience required, minimum qualifications, desired qualifications. With that said, the city council's had the last 4 or 5 days to review the packet and the information provided. I did receive some comments from Councilmember Cope today, but I'll let her express her concerns and desires. So with that said, I will hand it over to staff. But first, Jeff, do you have any comments? Otherwise, the process would be Jim and Chris, in case you have any comments before we have council make any comments.
I think the information, a lot of it speaks for itself. Something that's very difficult for us to get across in the information is, I think, comparisons. A lot of times we're tempted to try to compare ourselves with our neighboring city, Baxter, and it's just very difficult to do because they're dealing with a completely different situation over there where all of their work tends to be new construction. They have fewer permits, but they're higher valued permits. We deal with a very old housing stock in the city of Brainerd, and when people are doing remodel jobs or roofing jobs or window jobs, it typically requires more inspections. We're dealing with a lot more permit volume, dealing with more inspections, but they're lower valued permits. So it's very difficult to try to draw any comparisons between what's going on in Brainerd versus what's going on in Baxter. So I just wanted to make note of that.
Thank you.
Tim or Chris, any comments before? Or we have questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Well, then we'll open up floor for any questions. Are you looking
Can
for?
I'd like to ask a question, if I may,
Yes.
Mr. Chair. Usually when we get something, and in this case, it's from our city administrator, so I'm not exactly sure how to phrase this, because normally I would expect this cover letter to come from the engineering department or the housing department. But there's normally a one-line or a simple, my recommendation is. And I think it's kind of obvious based on the amount of data we got that you're looking to replace that. But I certainly would like to hear that to replace this position. And I don't see that in here. I see an awful lot of data, but not a recommendation from staff. And so I'd sure like to hear that, Mr. Chair. I mean, it seems obvious to me what the recommendation is, but I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth.
If I can, sir?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, staff's recommendation is to fill the current position that will be vacated by Scott Sadusky. It is the primary individual who does rental inspections. He is licensed and does other inspections for us, but his primary goal or responsibility is rental inspections.
Could you give us a detail on the pay or how much this
No,
position
Mr.
costs?
Chair, there's
Okay.
a lot more to be said than
Go
just do
ahead,
this.
ma'am.
This is a new year, and unless you want to come next year to budget with another 14-12% increase, it's time we start at this first meeting to review our options. And as our city administrator said, I visited with him about this. And my suggestion is that at this point, that we go take every possible option we can think of to fill the position without there being any promises, but to look at what's out there, including contracting with a private or another public entity for inspections. Clearly, we need to probably put out an RFP and see who's out there who might be interested. But before we make any kind of that we're saying that we're going to do this. We have got to look at our options, just as we did with the IT position. That came to council with right away $70,000 in the budget plus benefits. We can't go on this way. And if we're serious about it, now's the time to start. When we've had our little committee, we pared down the IT, we looked at our options. We're coming in at a fraction of what that cost would be. We have to find out yet how it works. I'll agree with that. And there may be a need for some kinds of changes, and I'll agree with that. We'll see. But we can't always start at the maximum. We need to start where we think we might get the best options to provide what we need. And so I'm not going to support anything at this point except that we consider all options. We have, I believe, talented staff who are fully capable of doing that, and then coming back to the council with some recommendations to address those options.
Thank you.
I'm going to make that in the form of a motion.
Can you
Yes.
briefly say what the meeting?
Shall I read that?
Yeah, Reader's Digest.
Wait,
All
wait,
right.
Mary, before you make it,
Pardon me?
before you make it,
All right.
can you put it on a committee?
No.
No? You don't want it on one?
I think what we need to do is, right now, I'm going to move that we ask staff to come back to the council with some options to fill the vacant position. And to include, and they have, these people have good
I
heads
need
on
it
their
in the
shoulders.
form of a motion, Mary,
Okay,
please.
the motion is that they come back with options and alternatives to fill this position. That's the motion.
We have a motion on the floor by Mary. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any more discussion? Mr. Bevins?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I like the motion, I just want it to be on a committee, and I'll vote against it, and then I'll explain why. Staff has made their recommendation with incredible amount of detail as to why they support this motion. I agree with Mrs. Cope to look at other options, but I don't know that if it's us telling staff we want to do something different, then then it should be a committee that comes together to put together something different. We're all big kids here. Staff has given us our recommendation. I don't see a problem saying we'd like to look at other things, but then let's us produce other things. I think this is truth be told, I think this is a personal and finance committee issue all the way, and I think to have staff, to throw this back in staff's lap and say, okay, thanks for all your work, but what we really want to do is look at other options. I don't know that's the best way to take staff's recommendation.
Mr. Chair, I think perhaps I can clarify that.
Okay.
It was my
Go ahead.
thinking, but I didn't say it. That once staff has done this, it would come to a committee.
Okay.
And so I would include in my motion then that it come back then to P&L committee for review.
We need somebody to amend the motion.
I'm including it in my. You
Okay.
agree I can do that?
We have a second on the
I agree.
original.
You don't need.
Okay, so we have okay, so it's been amended to include going back to a committee, which Mr. Bevins was alluding to. Chip?
Two concerns I would have. One is timing-wise. Can we afford to wait with that? Is this something that we put together for this year? And I only ask because
You're looking for a sunset?
Well, it just I don't like leaving things dangling out there. I know these guys got a lot of work to do, and they're
Yep.
under the gun. Every time I see them, they're.
It's not me.
Scott's here till March.
Can we get a quick update? Patrick wants to.
To address your specific question, as Mr. Sheeler's identified that I can speak now, Scott is here till March. He's identified that timeline. The reason we were starting now is to have a seamless transition so that Scott could train the new person in. It does not happen in 2 weeks, the process, so that's why we were starting now, and then we also knew there's possible questions were out here, so.
Okay.
We would put this on a fast track.
Okay.
Sue, you have something?
Well, I did. I just looking at like the third way to solve this rather than yes or no, but perhaps by posting it internally within the city, there is talent that could fill this position, and it would be probably a promotion because that's a very, very good wage. And then look at the backfilling, and perhaps it's not necessary to backfill a vacancy, but that you could go a long way in restaffing the city with the people that you have before you end up having to hire someone new. And then at the end of the day, I know you have collective bargaining agreements and things like that, but the talent is here. And so rather than bringing in new and starting fresh, maybe there is someone here that would fit the bill.
My question is, when
Go
do
ahead,
we
Dan.
have this back in the personnel and finance? Do we have a timeline that way? Would that be the next meeting?
Can you get the options together that quickly? Okay.
We
next
can
meeting.
get options together that quickly.
Okay.
We won't have RFPs out like
No.
had been discussed, but
So then
That's
it'd probably
about-
just be for discussion then.
I would think,
P&F
yeah.
we
next time.
could provide a survey of what other communities do, consulting, see if there's others out there. And I guess we could look at some of what's out there for the existing staff.
Sue's
If
ideas
you've got
are
some
good.
ideas on who Mike we're talking about, that would be helpful for me.
I don't know every employee in the city, but I bet there's people that do.
Can you explain the pay of this position, basically, roughly what the pay is and what we're looking at if it's a budget item?
It is budgeted for 2015. We have a contract. Chris, do you have that full amount salary range in this one? I see a dollar amount identified of $25.98. I don't believe if that's the top or if that. Okay.
85%.
85% of the $25.98. The 2015 base wage includes the increase of 2% that was approved by City Council. So.
Okay. Well, we have a motion on the floor, we have a second. Everybody's clear on the motion. If there's any questions on it, so everybody in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. 6-0.
When you need to, if you need to. use it.
Item 11E, Airport Utility Extension Consultant Selection Committee, and I have Jeff down for this, if you want to give us a quick, brief update on this, Jeff.
Sure. Somewhere in the packet here, there is a memo related to establishing a committee to select a consultant for the airport utility extension project. The staff, I just offered a few suggestions, but it's certainly up to the council on how we want to put that committee together. The RFQs are out. We do expect qualifications to be back from the firms probably next Friday on the 16th, I believe it is. The tentatively in the RFQ, we did mention that if there are interviews, and there probably would be an interview process, that they would likely be the week of January 21st to the 23rd. And then at that point, we would hope to make a recommendation to the council for their first meeting in February. The staff suggestion is maybe for a committee to have the city administrator, myself, the assistant city engineer, Scott Magnuson from BPU, since a portion of this project is going to involve water main extensions and a booster station, and then perhaps some a group of council members. And I just thought maybe the Safety and Public Works Committee, but it could be, I think, any collection of 2 or 3 council members. In terms of the actual interviews, we'd probably be doing this in daytime hours, although if we don't have enough council members that can go through that process during the daytime, we could schedule the interviews for evenings. So we could just work that out. So with that, staff is would request that the council consider the makeup of a committee.
Thank you, Jeff. Mr. Bevins, In your committee, what do you think?
You know, I haven't had a chance to talk to my new committee members here to see what you guys want to do. I know daytime, I mean, certainly this makes sense. I myself personally have a difficult time getting to the daytime meetings, but I would also suggest that our airport liaison is probably more qualified than me, since he's been involved with all the discussions so far. So without committing either of these two, I think you'd be excellent choices if you can do it, but I would like to defer my position as chairman to our airport liaison, just because it, first of all, it makes more sense, he's been involved. Second of all, it might be easier, it may be, and I don't know, easier for him to sneak out in the day. But that would be my one suggestion.
Mr. Bevins is right on. I would be able, and I was thinking of,
You guys okay?
I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
Yes.
they're okay. So,
Yes.
my motion would, if I may, Mr.
Yes.
Sealer, would be to approve the Airport Utility Extension Consultant Selection Interview Committee as City Administrator Woso, City Administrator Hall South there, Assistant City Engineer Fryhammer, BPU Superintendent Magnuson, and council members Borkenhagen, Hilgard, and Sheila. And I so move.
you have a motion on the floor, is there a second?
Second.
Any more discussion on that? Anybody want to back out of it? No. With the motion on the floor, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We're going to jump back up to 11D. We can tell I'm new. We missed one. Coverage for city volunteers. See memo, and this would be Patrick and Connie that would work on this. And go ahead, Patrick.
Yes, sir. This is a follow-up to the council's previous discussion. I believe it was at the end of the year. We talked about the possible additional insurance. Connie went through and obtained substantial more information about what the basic coverage is able to cover for us. There are some limitations, optional medical insurance. So the two different premiums are $680 and the other is $306. And then what we did is we talked to Weisinger Engel, our insurance provider, and identified different areas, worked with them to give examples to council on how an incident might have occurred that this insurance might be beneficial. We have not had this insurance in the past. It is new expenditure if council wishes to go with it.
With that, anybody in council want to start discussion or a motion?
May I ask a question?
Go ahead, Mr. Bivens.
City Administrator, is it necessary to make a decision on this right now?
No, sir.
Because then my motion would be that this, just like all of our insurance questions, would go to Personal and Finance and come back for a recommendation. And I so move.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Mr. Bivens.
My reason for the motion is just it gives a smaller group a little bit extra time to make a decision, rather than just, winging from the hip right now to make a decision.
Thank you, Mr. Bevins.
I might add, that
Yeah.
was something we had discussed without the committee structure in place.
Yep.
That's why we forwarded.
But if we've got the time.
Now you can see why I excelled the committee structure, so we can keep right on moving. With that, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We're going to go to 12, which is new business. 12A, Crow Wing Soil and Water Conservation District, Community Center, runoff mini grant application. This will be Jeff, and he's looking for approval. Go ahead, Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Real briefly, there's a memo in the packet that sort of outlines this program. I believe applications are due by late April. This is a mini grant program to mitigate stormwater runoff from various facilities. We think that we've got a couple of good projects that would be good stormwater mitigation projects that would be eligible for this grant. One would be to do some sort of like a rain garden or a sedimentation basin to mitigate the runoff from the parking lot and the boat landing area in Lum Park. Right now, the large parking lot, the large beach parking lot, sheet drains and flows directly into Rice Lake. So there's a bit of a boulevard area there between the beach and the parking lot where we could put in some sort of a mitigation facility and improve our stormwater runoff. Then also the second project would be in conjunction with the tennis court replacement project up in Gregory Park, and to mitigate the stormwater runoff from that project. grant does require 25% match. We can use in-kind services, so our thought would be to use our street department forces and/or parks department forces to do excavation work, haul materials, so we could do our 25% in-kind.
Thank you, Jeff. So is there any discussion from the council or any motion?
I just have a quick
I just-
question.
Go ahead, Dave.
Are these projects that would be done without the grant, are they already on the calendar to be done?
No, they're not. No.
And,
Well, I just had a question about eligible applicants on the grant application guidelines. It gave a list of River Lake homeowner associations, faith organizations, businesses, student groups, citizen groups, and nonprofits. And I didn't see a government entity as an eligible applicant, so I just wanted to make sure that the city could apply.
The Soil and Water Conservation District approached us on it, thinking that we probably had some good projects, so they encouraged us to apply.
you done so? Mm-hmm. Mr. Bevins?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now that I'm shifting gears from personal and finance over to safety and public works, I'm all over spending money. However, the personal and finance in me still drags its feet a little bit. I mean, I think this one seems like a good idea, not having runoff running into Rice Lake or off of the large expanse of concrete on the park at Gregory Park. But the part that kind of drags my feet a little bit is the $5,000. Whether it's in kind or not, I really think this should go to a committee and come back next weekend because of next time we meet because of the $5,000. We can take it here, but I think, from my perspective, the issue is the $5,000, and so it belongs in personal finance. And I so move.
We have a motion on the floor.
Is it too late for questions?
We'll have questions right afterwards.
If there's a second.
Okay.
If there's a second.
Then I would second that. Just
We have a motion, we have a second. Go ahead, Mr. Borgeningen.
do we?
Yeah, for discussion.
What went through my mind when I looked at this was the concern that I've been carrying around about where we park our salt and sand. As it's been my understanding anyway, that one of these days some big chief is going to come in here and write us a big ticket. And I'm wondering if, I understand this is an important priority. Probably all the stormwater runoffs are. But might that one be a little higher in priority that we could use this to address that?
We didn't have a committee tonight, so you're going to have to answer questions right on the council floor.
If I can, I don't think that would be an eligible project for this particular go-around of grant. But you're right that we do have some issues with the salt sand storage pile. We do some trenching around that to try to capture salt runoff. So we're already doing a little bit of that to some extent. When we did our MS4 audit earlier this fall, the Pollution Control Agency did take a look at that storage pile, and they did not give us any required actions. There's some recommended actions, but they didn't cite us for any violations. So, they are recommending some better best management practices to mitigate the runoff, from the salt sand storage facility, but at least we're not formally in violation.
Thank you, Jeff. And being got the motion directly on Lum Park, and, I appreciate your question, but we'll have to kind of focus back on Lum Park's motion here and not drift away. But we have a motion on the floor. Any more discussion? In a second. Dave? Mary? Motion on the floor is by Mr. Bevins, and all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Did we say which committee that was going to, Mr. Bevins?
Public
DNF? I added Item 12B, Council Work Session. Suggestion from Council Members Borgenhagen and Colt. I'll start out with Patrick on this. If you want to just, with your letter.
I included my cover memo with the letter from Mary and Chip. This is a meeting that was talked about, I think, in October 2014. Council members Pope and Borkenhagen threw this idea out for discussion, but they said clearly we had a lot of budget going on at that time, wanted to get through that, and I think the suggestion was to meet in January, being that we have a meeting already scheduled for the 26th, we have a regular meeting scheduled for the 20th following the holiday. The theory was that we do have an open Monday, if you wanted to keep it to Mondays when being consistent. The 12th is a suggested time at 6 o'clock, but I now defer to.
Well, I think when Chip and I met and talked
Go ahead,
about.
Mary.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman. Excuse me. We thought it would be a good chance for just some informal discussion without action by the council. And that it should be just the council and the administrator, not department heads. It should simply be a chance perhaps to have one or two subjects identified and have everyone just discuss them as if you were in your living room talking to your friends. And if there was any wish for some action on any one item or to pursue it through a committee or whatever, that would then be brought to the next council meeting to take that up. But so many times, in fact always, at our council meetings, we have an agenda and we follow it, and that's the way it should be. I mean, we can't just have a free-for-all. You know, sometimes it seems like it, but we actually need to have some formal structure and follow that. But that then means that the council members really never have any time for the give and take and a melding of ideas and really listening to each other. And it seemed to us that that might be beneficial. And we might be wrong. Maybe it won't be. But we thought if we never try it, and so I think that Chip is going to agree with me that we'd at least like to try it.
Yep.
We'd at least like to.
I know. Chip, you want to add on to it?
The only thing I would add is, particularly with new members on, to give us all a chance to just kind of get to know each other a little bit, understand, some of the personal goals that we hope to achieve. I guess basically just what I had put in my note. I thought we could just try it once, see if it works. If we feel that, it was beneficial, we could continue it. If not, we tried. And
Mr. Chair, and I would go so far as to say that if we're willing to try this, that perhaps at meetings there ought to be one or two subjects identified that after we have our little chit-chat, that we maybe have one or two subjects that we talk about. And not that we take any action, but that we say, I've been concerned about this, and I'd like to tell you why. And then other council members can either say, well, I've never had any, or whatever. And if the council is willing to try it, I've even got a couple suggestions for the first meeting.
Yeah.
If I could.
Before that, I'll
Right.
probably just see what the rest all have to
Right.
say. If we're going to, Dave, you got anything to add? You like this?
I like the idea. I'd like to see it kind of focused on what's here. I'm not sure what Mary's getting
Yeah.
at that makes me a little bit more tentative. But I think this would be a good first step and see how that goes, and then maybe afterwards come out with a couple issues
Sure.
specifically that we'd want to discuss,
Okay.
something like that.
Sue?
No, I think it's a very good idea. The only question I had is if Mr. Johnson will be home from the holiday next Monday.
My understanding he was going to be.
Okay.
Thanks, Patrick.
Then, yeah, I'm very much in favor.
Mr. Bevins?
If I have to, I'll be there.
So then, do we have a
So
motion?
moved.
We have a motion, we're looking for a second.
I'll second.
With the motion on the floor, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 13, public forum. This will be time allocated for citizens to bring matters not on the agenda to the attention of the council. Time limits may be imposed.
Welcome to the
Basically, we're going to open it up to the public right now. If anybody up there want to come up? Public forum, one more time. Public forum is closed. Item number 14, staff reports, written, verbal, any updates since the packet. We'll start out with Patrick.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any staff reports, Jeff?
Just very briefly, I'd like to thank the council for the reappointment earlier this evening. Look forward to 2 more very productive years.
Thank you, Jeff. Mark?
I have nothing.
Wow. I'm sorry.
I can't get it.
With that, Eric?
I have nothing as well.
So with that, we'll go
Connie,
to...
don't forget Connie.
Oh, Connie.
She's coming.
Oh, I see Connie.
I'll grow up.
Item number 15, council president, mayor, and council other committee reports. We'll start out with the mayor report.
Outside of my written one, wish everybody a happy, safe New Year.
Anybody in the committees? On the council? And I don't have one either tonight. Maybe I do. Let me just go real quick what happened. I'm just going to jump on this.
It's not a written speech.
Yeah. Everybody knows what happened last night. I want to commend our police force for doing a great job. Crow Wing County, Baxter, and the Highway Patrol. I went through town at the time this happened and absolutely was scared out of my mind. Went home, locked the doors like everybody else, heard the police reports and stuff like that. But one of the questions I have for the council is, what was written in the paper, and this bothers me the most, and it's 25 calls at this location since May. And 2 really serious ones. Last night it's tremendously serious, and then October 3rd. Where can the council go, or where can the city go to prevent something like this to happening after, 25 times there? I did call the owner and the landlord. I expressed my concerns about this particular location, especially where it's located, and I just would like, even ask Eric if there's a direction that the council can take action or can do something, or because something needs to be done. I pulled up from the city here a whole bunch of calls that were made at this place, and it doesn't seem like there's any follow-up from the landlord to the, to the police reports and everything else. It's just, they sent out the police department just sends something out to this site, and it just says, on October 6th, we at the Brainerd Police Department have a strong commitment to keeping Brainerd safe and desirable. And they go, please be advised that police were called to this address again, and there's just one after another. And so I'm just looking for some direction from the council on what we can do on something like this, or from staff. Go ahead, Mr. Barton.
Gary, you're just spot on. I think that this is a symptom of bigger issues that personally I'm hoping that we can chase after this year. Because it is such a big issue, and it involves there's so many pieces to this puzzle that I don't know if there's anything that we can do tonight to achieve this. But this is one of the things that I was hoping we would be able to address in this other meeting, is just start swirling around our own ideas and then figuring out the best way to invite ideas from the community to help us solve this whole situation. Much of it is, and I know I'm going to be in trouble for saying this, but I'll say it anyway. So much of it is rental property. It's pretty rare that you see situations like this happen in owner-occupied. But then when you start thinking it through, and the whole thing of, it just gets to be quite a quagmire, and I think it takes more conversation than to just, but I sure hear what you're saying.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'm not certain if it's law or if it's simply part of one of our own ordinances, but there is something that I'm aware of, that if the police are called, and I believe it's 3 times, to a rental unit with significant problem, and I believe somewhere I've seen the problem defined, and it can be disorderly conduct, drunkenness, all that kind of call. The police have the authority to notify the landlord the owner of the property and ask that person to evict those people. And I don't think they use it very often, and I can see why. It's a sensitive issue. And Patrick apparently knows a lot more about this than I do, but I believe it's something that should be used. I agree. That many calls and serious calls and nothing done, that property owner should have been told, you get rid of them, and you do it now, within so many days.
Thanks, Marion. Patrick, go ahead.
Yes, based upon a conversation Mr. Sheeler had with one of the staff members, Jeff and Eric were contacted about this on our ordinance, and Corky was also, but that was about 4:30, 5 o'clock today. So and Eric was already on the road, so I apologize. We won't have a lot of information, but if it's okay, I would hand it over to Eric.
Yes. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, that'd be fine. Like Patrick said, I did get the email on my way up here tonight, so I haven't had any chance to look at, even refresh the rental ordinance for me. So, but I'd be happy to look into that and work with other staff on that as well.
Thank you, Eric. Sue?
Well, I think I agree that it's an issue, but there's a lot involved. It has to do with affordable housing, where people live that's affordable. If people have something in their background that prevents them from being in subsidized housing, they have very few places to live. Compound that was a multiple family dwelling, and more than one of the families or renters within that building were involved in separate occasions, so it wasn't always the same person that the police were responding to. So it's really complicated.
Well, perhaps, Mr. Chair, perhaps we could talk with the police chief and urge him to nonetheless use the full authority of his office to enforce what we already have on the books. Because I think they can, when I say I think they can do more, I don't mean in any disrespect to the police department. It's a sensitive subject, and they're careful how they use it. But I think that if they know the council is behind them, if they get tougher on this, we're behind them, I think they will. So I think that's probably the route we need to go.
My question then to staff would be, how do we as a council know that there was, until we just read the paper found out for us that there's been 25 calls since May. I wish we would have some kind of a notification that we can start working so we don't have an issue like we had last night where the whole town is scared out of their wits. And so maybe Patrick can help us out on that. Is there other properties that we should be looking at? So.
Someone has, I think, something to say about that, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I believe that a party knows something about this. Apparently.
It's up to you, sir, if you'd like to have somebody speak.
Yeah, I probably at the next meeting. I'm just going to hold on that for the moment. And we're just this council discussion.
Could you ask her if it's relevant information?
I think if it's relevant,
I mean, if everybody thinks it's okay, yeah, then come on up, please.
I would.
Name and address. No.
We'll need your name and address. I'm sorry. Yes.
You can use either microphone.
Don't be afraid. Yeah, it's
You're a mom.
your name and address, though.
Melissa Lake, 102 Bowery Circle.
Leslie Lee?
Melissa.
Melissa Lee.
And I'm sorry, I missed the address, Melissa.
102 Bowery Circle.
Thank you.
My husband and I own the property at 812 Juniper Street. And I guess I'm concerned because, right, there's a lot of facts that are out there. We've owned this building for 16 years. And so the 25 phone calls that have been from May 2013, we have the separate incident from 3 months ago. We've placed an eviction, but it doesn't happen overnight, and our hands are tied. So there are processes in place. We're trying to do things. The thing that we're forgetting, first of all, like the gentleman alluded to, these are families. The person that rented from us has been there for 3 years, and we've had no issues with it. She pays her rent monthly. And we've had no concerns with that person specifically. The suspects were not renters of ours. And right, because this person is a renter versus owning a home, I understand the research and that things do happen and you know, the homes that are rented versus owned. I get that. But I guess my frustration came when you called my husband today and
Thank you for that.
basically placed out these facts that weren't true, that you didn't
The
know.
only
that
facts
you're
I peeved was exactly
from
what
the
the press said.
dispatch.
From the Brainerd Dispatch.
Right. And I don't want to place blame, and I don't want to put people under the bus. But the issues that we've had, right, we've worked with county services to rent to people who don't have other places to go. So we were trying to give people a second chance, and we're the ones that got burned, and we're the ones that get a bad name. Because the outside of the house doesn't look good, it's automatically put a label on it. And so we don't rent to these people anymore, and we don't rent to this
Okay.
service that we were before, and we saw a decrease. It's unfortunate these two events did happen so close in timing, but they were completely separate. And we are not. We have 22 units in the city of Brainerd. We have 2 commercial units. It is not our goal to be slumlords in this town. And obviously we want to fix it as well, but it doesn't happen overnight. And that's where we want to be heard. And again, I want to make sure that people realize it's not the tenant who's, I understand she's making choices, obviously, and she doesn't make out with good people. But we certainly did not ask to have a shooting happen at our rental. And obviously that lady and that gentleman certainly didn't ask wounded either. And that's our concern, is that the blame is placed on the people, not the person who's on the house.
Thank you, Melissa.
I want to ask her a question. Ms. Lake, the 24 calls that were made for between 13 and 14, were they for the same tenant?
No. As far as there's noise complaints, the location is 4. It's hard. It's right across from St. Francis School. I understand they have concerns. We get multiple calls for the door being open. Front door's open. There's no door on the building. There is a door in the building. Well, the tenants don't close it. Go close it for them. You write notices. You have to close it. I mean, we have
I have to grab a
people.
quick suggestion from Patrick here.
And I appreciate the lakes and their concerns, and I know the council has concerns too. I think, being how sensitive this is, being just recently, that it'd be maybe appropriate if you allow staff to work with and come back with an answer, and make sure that we work with the lakes to get their input too, and feed that back to the city council so that there's communications both ways.
Certainly, and that's all we ask for as well.
Can I ask
Yep, that'll be.
one quick question?
Yeah, go ahead.
How many rental units do you say you have?
Individual apartments, we have 22, 5 buildings, and then 2 commercial. All in the city of Brainerd.
So you have a question?
Just wanted to include the rental association with your strategy.
Yep, thank you.
You want that in form of a motion, or are you just okay with direction? Okay, thank you, Melissa. With that, we'll move on, unless there's no more questions, we'll move on to the next item, which will be item number 16, committee resignations, accept with regret, effective 12/31/2012. Park Board, J.D. Byrd.
Move to accept.
2 years ago?
Sorry,
With
that
the-
was a mis...
with the
a typo.
corrected
It was-
date. 14? Of 14. And I so move.
We have a motion,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
And that's with regret, same
Yes.
sign. Motion passes. Item 17, committee recommendation, recommended by Mayor Wallin. Can we do them item by item?
You can do however you want.
Let's do
Item
it.
A, Charter Commission, reappointment of Don Samuelson, Dolly Matten, and Carla Staffen for 4-year terms to expire on 12/31/2018.
Move to approve.
We got a motion?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item B, Economic Development Authority. This is a new appointment for Dale Parks for a term to expire on 9/7/2020.
Move to approve.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item C, Public Utility Commission, newly appointed for Dolly Matten for a term to expire on 12/31/2019.
Move to approve.
We have a motion. We have a motion. We have a motion.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. And there must be discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'm going to speak in opposition of this. First of all, I don't believe there was adequate notice to the public that this vacancy was open or available. Secondly, the party that is being recommended is currently on the Charter Commission, was just reappointed, and is also on the Planning Commission. It's my understanding that she chooses to stay there, and that's very good. But I think this council has attempted to have a posture of having as large a participation from the public as possible. And I think we should do that. The Planning Commission is a huge commitment, huge. And the Public Utility Commission should be a huge commitment. And I think that I know of at least one other person who did apply for that, who's extremely well qualified, has applied in the past. The Public Service Commission, Public Utility Commission, is frankly a board that probably should be elected. They spend millions of dollars, and sometimes we think not so wisely. But I think we need to look for the absolutely most qualified person available to fill that vacancy. And clearly, I think, without equivocation, that person would have been Dan Vogt. And so I am not going to support the appointment, and I would strongly recommend that the mayor reconsider with an eye toward not just the Public Utilities Commission being a boneyard for old council members, but be exactly what it's intended to be, a vibrant, active, independent, acting, well-informed board.
Thank you.
My way I look at it.
Mr. Bivens?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I apologize. I seconded this motion, and I certainly would be willing, to speak in favor of it, except for it appears Alderwoman Cope has information that I don't, and that's that I only have one applicant.
They were all included, Mr. Bevins, they just weren't in order, I apologize. Mr. Brewer and Mr. Vogt did also apply.
Okay, they are all here, and I apologize. When I went from BPU to Transit Advisory Committee, I presumed wrongly so that this was the only applicant. So I maybe need to resecond or rethink my second, or maybe this should. Can I ask a question?
Yes.
How long has this been open? Because Mrs. Cope also brought up the question, and I apologize if I wasn't paying attention. How long has this been open?
It was mentioned on the last, if I may, it was mentioned at the last, on the last council meeting that there was going to be a vacancy or an opening.
Okay.
So it's been whatever the last meeting was.
This was that special meeting on the Christmas Eve?
No, I don't think so. I think it was a
Okay,
regular.
that was our
council
last regular
council meeting.
Okay. I have no further questions.
I don't remember it being
don't
there,
either.
but I just,
don't remember.
Patrick, you remember?
The mayor said he spoke about it at the city council meeting. What we did is follow the same process that has been used, and that is one that we don't list as open. I'm not sure why, but we have, historically have not listed that one as open.
Okay.
Historically, you have the other committees, the EDA has had openings since October for 2 openings, and a variety of other committees, and so we list those constantly. This one, because it's I believe, as James told me, it's a transition from one to the next, we don't. We did have the 3 applicants. The one was, I want to say early November, or late November, then we had one mid-December, and then the last one was received December 30th. And the reason we did it that way, Kelly, if I can, sir?
Yep.
Is we put the 3 or the recommendations up front, and then we put all the others behind those, so we didn't have them grouped for application.
So who can I ask, what is the process or the protocol or the process for this, in the charter or in the, as far as notification? And the reason I'm going to ask this question is, one is it's a $75,000 to $100,000 paying job after the 5 years. You get, not paying, but you get your health benefits and you do get a check on the side. So, it's about $20,000 a year, $15,000 to $20,000 a year position. And it's a paid position, but what is the proper, because we just went through this last year with, the same questions.
I couldn't answer what happened last year.
Or when Lucy got on, we had some of the same questions that are being asked now. And every time this comes up, it seems like there's always, questions on how this should be handled.
Typically, my base response is I don't have the charter in front of me, so I can get that back to you.
Yep.
My recollection is that it's the mayor's appointment.
Yeah, okay,
But it has to be verified by the council.
That's great.
okay.
And before we're done, I'd like to make a couple comments.
Okay, I'll let you.
Number one, you'd mentioned about a dollar amount. If the person that is on the commission, and I have no idea who takes their, or gets the health insurance, but if you figure, I think right now, the city's health insurance is about $12,000.
Okay.
Most of the people that serve on that board, I think, get $200 a month, and I think the chairperson gets $250. So if you figure, say, it's $200 a month times 12 would be about $1,200 additional besides the thing.
2,400. Okay.
And I guess I listened to Mary's thinking that the previous city administrator, and he applied last year, as well as again this year. One of the things that I have a concern about, and I do spend a lot of time in prayer on who I'm going to appoint, as well as the fact that I talked to Don Seavey, who I've known personally for over 40 years, a dear friend of mine, him and his wife Doris, as well as Steve Seavey. I've known these people, and I felt that after Don Seavey had been on there for 14 years, it was time, and I had told him that I was not going to reappoint him. Mary brings up the fact about Dan Vogt would be an excellent choice. Right now, he's, as far as I know, he's still, while he was a previous administrator here for about 22 years, he's also part-time administrator for Little Falls and I believe Cross Lake. To me, you put a person that is in authority, and I say authority because as administrator, that's about a high authority you get within a community, to put that into a commission where you have a superintendent and you also have a finance director. You have, to me, a board of directors or commissioners that are pretty much lay people, come from different walks of life and that. But you have, to me, a well-rounded commission, and to put someone that has been in an authority and to have to work directly with a superintendent as well as a finance director, to me, is mixing oil and water. And to me, I do not feel, as much as I appreciate Dan and what he's doing for the city, and this, talk about being involvement. One of the reasons I looked at Dolly was she was here for a few months, did an excellent job. I thought she was probably one of the most outstanding new council people that I've ever had the privilege of serving with, in that she really did her homework. She was very involved. She, any issue that came up, as well as the fact that she is on the planning and zoning as well as her own personal occupation. She really has an excellent background, and to me, has a personality and the ability, I think, to really do a good job of serving on that commission. So that is the reason I appointed her. Thank you for allowing me to.
And I know it's a tough decision, Mayor, and I know this was tough for you. Go ahead, Mr. Borgenhagen.
I have no issue whatsoever with Dolly. I also have been really impressed with her talents and abilities. The only thing that I just have some little scar tissue left from last year when Lucy was appointed. There was a lot of flack that came from the community saying, wait a minute, we didn't even know that position was open. Shouldn't there be more public awareness? Should we perchance advertise or something, get the word out that this, to be sure that that good candidates might come to the table? I don't know. And again, I have no issue at all with Dolly. It's just the process seems a little odd to me from my novice standpoint.
We've got, if I may, we've got a newspaper here. We can delay this for, say, until the next council meeting or whatever, and I don't have a problem with that. I mean, if people are having heartburn, we don't want to have heartburn, not the beginning of the year anyway. Wait until the middle to have it. But no, if that's what everybody has a real concern over, let's wait until the next scheduled council meeting.
Well,
We have a motion, if somebody wants to rescind the motion,
I will rescind.
you want to rescind your second, Mr. Bevins? Or go ahead and speak on the motion if you want to.
You know, I'd much, as much as I hate to say this, I have never voted for one of these in all my years in the council. I'd much rather see it tabled, so we vote on this motion. Because I think it's a good motion, and I'll explain why. I also think Dolly is incredibly suited to this task. I think she might be a little overextended, but I believe the mayor. Just because I missed the fact that it wasn't, or may not have been notified at the last council meeting, I mean, he's the mayor. I'm not going to question it.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody wants to prove him wrong, go ahead.
Well, I'll tell you, if we're going to vote for this right now, I'm going to vote for it.
Well-
The reason I'm rescinding,
Mr. Chair, I have the floor.
Yes,
And I know you're going to. I know you're going to speak.
Okay.
I know we're going to speak
Okay.
together. But
I
I don't
don't-
mind if there's enough question regarding particularly process. I don't mind seeing it tabled as long as this motion gets voted on. But the motioner has rescinded his motion. I would like to stick with mine. I think it's a good motion. I don't think it's a bad motion. The timing might, as the mayor suggested, be movable. But I'd like to see it voted on.
I'm going to move to table.
I'll second.
I don't know what the process is
We
when
have
there's
a
been a
motion to
rescission.
table and there's no
Table
discussion.
supersedes.
Yeah, but you don't have a motion. He's rescinded it. I don't know what the process is.
right?
Mary,
I'll move
Mary,
to table the issue.
Well, the issue. I don't think you can table an issue. I think you have to table a motion, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
And there is no motion. I don't know the process with Robert's Rules of Order when the motioner has already rescinded his motion. But I don't think Mrs. Cope's table is in order. Because there is no motion.
There's a whole lot of conversation
I
going
know.
on here. So
Hang on a second, dear.
if we can just, I think we used Sturgis modified rules, not Robert's rules. There was a motion request to, as I understand, to consider withdrawing his motion, but without the seconder agreeing, I don't think.
Still.
I think it's still a motion. It's still a
There's still a motion
Okay.
on the floor.
Still
Now,
on the
but
floor.
but then we had a motion to table and a second to that. And my understanding, I'm going to defer to Eric on this, but my understanding is once a motion to second or to table is made, that is acted on
supersedes.
first.
Right, that's right.
Under Sturgis, I'm a little unclear.
And there's no discussion.
So that
What's the timing?
it would have the voting.
You just vote.
Well, the question by Councilmember Bevins is when would it be brought back to City Council? My understanding would be the next meeting exactly after this. So you have a motion and a second to table to the next meeting, which would be January 20th.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you for the clarification. I'm new here, so don't be too hard on me guys.
You did good.
Okay. Item 17D, Rental Dwelling License Board of Appeals. Reappointment of Rick Fargo, Tom Barnett, and Teresa Hefner for 2 terms to expire 12/13/2016. Looking for a motion?
Move to approve.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second by Sue. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 17E, Transportation Advisory Committee. There's new appointments, Kimberly Strickland and Dale Parks for a 2-year term to expire 12/31/2016. Looking for a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion, Mr. Bergenegg, and there was a second. Motion on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 18, Council Liaison Appointments recommended by Mayor Wallin.
I'm going to move A through I.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor, second by Mr. Bevins. All in favor?
Actually,
Aye.
the motion, if I can
Discussion.
clarify,
Discussion.
the motion
Wait.
was Mary Cope, second by Kelly Bevins.
Yeah.
And there was
Discussion.
discussion.
Oh, and we have discussion, sorry about that. Okay. Sue, go ahead.
No, it was for Chip.
Oh, Mr. Bergen?
After I got to thinking about this, reminding myself that I'm also the fire liaison puts me in 4 different positions, and I don't see Gabe on here anywhere. And did I miss him somewhere?
Can I-
Yes, go ahead.
When Bonnie passed away, the council talked about this, if you recall, and decided that the new council member, they didn't want to burden that individual who happened to be Dolly Madden for a period of 8 to 9 months. So you guys divided the duties between the other individuals. So there are no committee assignments for that position. Or not, Sue's got one on here, but Gabe does not have any other committee assignments.
Give up one.
But when I started off here, I had 3. All I'm saying is,
You want to give up one?
I can't do 4.
How
Okay.
about the park board? Maybe somebody else could do that.
Well, I think what might be a bigger discussion issue would be the fire. The fire quagmire needs, that alone can be a full-time
I can take
situation.
that one.
And if
Oh, yeah. Okay, there you go, Sue.
somebody
There you
could
go.
take,
Mary wanted
Sue
to
will
switch
take,
one.
Sue will take 4.
I can't take 4.
Yeah, you're on my committee, yes, you can.
He's putting everything in the other committee.
But
Yeah.
we will,
Mr. Bergen, you brought up a good point. Sue, go ahead.
I agree that just because Gabe's not here to speak up, I do think that a committee responsibility is an important part of learning your job, and that if Mr. Borgenhagen wanted to give ARC or community action, that community action might suit Gabe really well with his background in community service organizations. The fire service, I'm not sure what that entails, so I won't say I'll do that until I know. And it's not on
well,
here.
I guess maybe, excuse me, is this permanent forever?
No.
We are locked in, it's
No,
tattooed on
in
our
fact,
foreheads?
in looking at this, I'm thinking that I'd almost like to have someone else take the blade act and give someone else an experience in that area.
Mr. Mayor, these are your recommendations. You take the floor at the moment and go with
Okay.
it.
Well, at the Arboretum, I enjoy that one, because my wife and I are real involved in the Arboretum. And as
So should
far
we
as
take
the
them
other-
line item by line item, being brief? 18A, Arboretum.
Okay, I'll take that one. The Blade Act, I'd like to see if someone else willing to
I will.
serve on that.
I will.
Would you? Okay,
So
let's,
we're going to have to amend this motion. So 18A will be Mayor Wallin. 18B, Blade Act,
would be Sue.
be Sue. 18C, Cable TV Advisory Committee, we have Mary right now.
It's an exciting committee.
Yeah, that's really,
You want to keep that one?
well, we never meet, so it's a good one to have.
18, you didn't answer the question, but
Yes,
18D.
I'm
Chud,
good. I
you're
like
gonna-
it.
Mr. Bevins, you're going to stay with 18D?
Yes, sir.
18E, Community Action, Chip Borgenhagen.
I'll keep that one, and I guess I'm open here, but I just don't want 4.
That one you'll take?
Sure.
Okay. 18F.
I'll stay.
I got the 18G, Park Board, Chip Borgenhagen. You want to send that to Gabe?
That might be a good one for
Oh, that'd be
too.
Yeah.
Sure. Yes.
Let's put him on there.
Okay.
Good.
18H, Transportation Advisory Committee. Sue?
I'll keep that unless somebody really wants it.
18I, Senior Center, Chip Borgenhagen.
Sure.
Likes the donut.
If you got hesitation, anybody else want it? Okay. So then the motion will be with,
I'll amend the motion to represent the new people who've been asked.
Seconder's fine.
we have a motion on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes, and I'm sure everybody knows who. How did we do, Mayor?
You did well.
I think you did wonderful.
Oh, yeah, I did.
We need a
Thank you.
motion to.
Move to adjourn to closed session.
Second.